All right. So, Rella, what is the secret to transforming yourself into an author brand?
So the secret is not really such a big secret. The important part is that you know who you are and what it is that you're trying to convey, whether that's purely in your books or whether you're trying to brand yourself outside of your books as well. So if you're positioning yourself to be an expert in some sort of field, whether that's health or even motherhood, then you need
Hmm.
to decide what kind of mom do you want to be. Are you that funny mom friend, or are
Hmm.
you the mom that's in an author like a authoritative parent?
Hmm.
And make sure you stick to that brand, because if someone's coming
Hmm.
to you for discipline tips and you're doing funny reels with your kids, they're going to be like, wait a second, the branding is off, the messaging is off. So, first, you need to know what exactly it is that you are trying to convey to people so you can give them the right message.
Yeah, I can totally resonate with that. I know with me, I used to really go towards inspirational content. And some people would be inspired. Some people would just think it was funny, the healthy mix. And I realized that I really wanted to start niching down into writing because that's just what I've always been passionate about. And I've learned that ever since I've really niched my brand around purely writing, and I'm kind of learning along the way, like it started from generalized writing, then it was for new writers, and now it's for unpublished authors or unpublished writers. I'm just continuing to learn more about the audience. But if I was like, okay, I'm going to do comedy or I'm going to do inspiration, that wouldn't really like people just wouldn't sign up for that.
Right. I mean, I guess you have to know your strengths too, you
Mhm.
know? So, I don't know. Are you like super funny? I think you're funny.
Thank you. You know what? I don't think that I'm funny at all, but when I think about people, and where as writers we understand characters, I think about like, okay, what do I think about myself? I myself think I'm hopefully hopefully a good writer and hopefully entertaining on occasion. But then other people tell me like, okay, I can be inspirational. There's some times where I can be funny, and there's times where I can be helpful. So then I kind of take all that together and like, okay, this is who I am based on how well I know myself and based off how people perceive me.
Right. And that's
Mhm.
important too. If you don't know how you're perceived, just ask and then lean
Mhm.
into that. If lots of people are telling you that you're resourceful, then be the resourceful author.
Yeah, I see like a lot of new brands, right? A lot of new content creators or new writers with author brands. They try to like start. Kind of have this idea of themselves, and it's kind of hard to get feedback in the beginning when they don't have any real like audience yet.
Yes, this is very true. I've gone through a small rebrand from since
Hmm.
the time that I've started until now,
Hmm.
just because I did realize that because I was doing so many things, that some
Hmm.
people didn't realize that I was even an author. And I was like, that's why I started doing
Really?
all of this. Yes.
Some people didn't
So,
even realize you were an author, but that's what you were doing. And
right.
that's crazy. And I could relate with that because there's so many different things we have to do as content creators. There's so many different things
Definitely.
you have to do as an author. Like you can't just be an author in this day and age. You have to
No,
like
you can't.
all the things.
Yes, you have to be a marketer. You have to be like a Canva expert, do all your graphics, everything.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that, Rella. Appreciate it. We're going to be hopping into the conversation in just a second. So, welcome to the Create Right Now podcast. I'm Kauffman, and I'm on a mission to help the unpublished writers of the world show them that the entire writing process, brainstorming, writing, and editing, can be both fun and easy with the right framework. So, let's publish our books together, and we're starting right now. All right, let's welcome to the stream WTC. First chatter, you get the win for the day. ML, welcome. Marta, welcome, welcome, welcome. WTC, talking about my comedy over here. Jared just needs to start telling dad jokes to be more funny. I'm corny on occasion, but when I start getting when I can invest in audio and sound equipment, then I'll add the corny sound effects. Let him become a father first. Yeah, that'd probably help with the dad jokes, wouldn't it? Now, hey, now, bad dad jokes don't need to be just for dads. True to that, my friend. I like to tell people I am 75% corny and 25% clever. And if you think it's clever, then it was very intentional. All right, beautiful. So with today's schedule, we're going to be chatting about how do you develop and how do you turn yourself into an author brand. I'm sitting down with Rella B over from Rella B Books, and we're going to be breaking this down into 5 unique elements. We're going to be talking about how do you establish your unique identity, how do you connect with your audience, how do you leverage your strengths, how do you grow your influence, and most importantly, the one that we all want to know how do you make money? So, we're going to be chatting about all of that and more in today's episode. And beautiful. So, I brought Rella B on here. So, Rella B is a children's author and YouTuber over with Rella B Books. She believes reading is the simplest way to shift your mood, expand your mind, and transform your life. Her newly published children's book, If Shapes Could Eat, encourages a healthy relationship with food for little eaters, including those who are picky, like myself. I used to be very picky. I get that. This is a valuable tool for parents to support their child's well being. Through her stories, she aims to empower young readers to embrace the magic of books and create a lifelong love of learning and growth. Let me welcome Rella back to the stream. Welcome, Rella. Thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
Thanks so much for having me. I am doing
Mhm.
great and I'm super excited to be here. Hi, everybody.
Hey. And I know we already have a lot of people here in the chat, some of our regulars, chatting about our dad jokes for sure. I'll be like, guess I'll see if I have any dad jokes for them today. So it's really cool. And I know when I want to say we connected over threads. I think one
Yes.
of the things that stood out to me about what you're doing, Rella, is you have this like very unique identity, this very unique persona for the children's genre. It's so cool. It stands out so much.
Thank
How did
you.
you come up with like the idea for it?
I knew that I wanted to be a children's book author years ago,
Mhm,
and I just didn't pull the trigger. But when I decided, like, hey, this is going to be what I'm doing, I need to be able to do it well, and I need to be able to do it different. I wanted to be an author that was easily recognizable, and I wanted to
mhm.
bring in different audiences from different areas because ultimately, I think whether you're listening to a read aloud video, a podcast, or reading a book, like being in the literacy environment for kids is just so important to help with their comprehension skills, gain empathy through storytelling. There's just so much power in it. So I was like, well, how am I going to do this? And then it all started from there, and I just got more and more ideas.
I have to like totally like tip my hat to what you're doing because I know and I've heard from all my research and YouTube genres and the different types of YouTube content out there that the children's genre is one of the most difficult ones to get into and to do it successfully because there are so many restrictions for child safety, of course. But I remember YouTube went through a whole change in the YouTube platform with children's content. I think about 5 to 10 years ago.
Yes.
So just how I remember it was the child. I think it was the
It's like
YouTube child
COPA laws.
apocalypse. Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep. It was all with the COPA laws. So I just so impressed that you're able to do this. I couldn't imagine how I would go about
Thanks. Yeah. Every day I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I love this.
it. So, for our new writers here in the community, whether they're working on a children's brand or they're working on a fiction brand, because I know a lot of the writers in my community, I always think because I'm working on a fantasy book that they're going to be fantasy author or fantasy writers, but I actually get a healthy mix of fantasy, sci-fi, horror is very popular, romance, and memoir tends to be the top 5. I have gotten some children's ones. I've actually gotten a couple of children's ones before. So, for all of these authors or these young writers who really want to develop their brand, what would you say is one of your tips for establishing a unique identity?
So I would say that, first of all, if you know what you want to write, then you
Mhm,
should follow other writers that are writing that and see what you like that stands out about that writer, and then
mhm,
see what you could possibly emulate. For example, I watched a lot of content from this woman that does dark fantasy, or I'm sorry, it's dark romance that she writes.
Okay.
And her whole thing is one, like her dark is extra dark, but then she also does like really cool boxes that go with all of her books. So she has like very extravagant boxes that have like all of this cool merch in it. And
So is it
she,
like one of those like mystery boxes where you buy the box for like $10 and you get a bunch of random things in it?
no, you buy this
Is it
box for like $250 and
Oh,
they're very
that's a
exclusive.
that's a pricey
Yeah.
model, but
Yes.
clearly it must work if she's doing it. That's awesome.
Right, and she limits them. She's like, "These are
Mhm.
special edition. You can get the merch down
Oh,
here if you want, like, a
okay.
pin or this, but if you want this exclusive, like, branded box, you need to pay for it." And people go wild for
Interesting.
it.
And
So,
she's doing the exclusive the exclusive brand drop, which is
yes.
generally done notoriously through clothing and merchandise. That's a very
Yes.
common model that I've seen where it's like, okay, we're dropping these limited shoes or these limited shirts, but you got to get it now because they're never going to be made again. Mhm.
Right. So, yeah, I really applaud her for that. I was like, "Man, should I do something like that?" But that's not where I'm at.
And I think that's always the challenge for us writers and content creators. We could literally try, like, we could do 100 different things, but
Right.
it's like, what is the right things to do for our brands?
Exactly. So, I
Mhm,
mean, that might not work as well for like children's books, but you
mhm,
could probably do something very similar to that for any like fantasy, horror. If you're also an artist, that could be part of your brand. So it just
mhm,
really depends on like who you are as a person, what your strengths are, and then what you want to feed into. Like when someone says, "Oh, so and so is an author,
mhm,
they're known for this funny
mhm,
books with merch or fantasy books with figurines or something
mhm.
like that." So it's like easily memorable.
Yeah, I remember one of my influencers at one point, they were saying, "What do you want people to know you for?" And then do that one thing religiously for the next 10 years. And
And
I'm like,
well,
yeah,
yes.
that's really what it was. How you've gone through this journey. How do you know that, or how did you know that this, like, this children's, this brand that you have, this, it's almost like this character that you've created as Rella B. How did you know that, like, this was it? This was like the vibe.
Yeah. So I I struggled with it for a long time because like I said, I'd been
Mhm.
writing for a long time and I didn't pull the trigger. But my daughter loves to sing and
Okay.
create stories. So I was like, you know what? If I start a brand and 5 years down the line, she decides, "You know what? Like, I wanna be in your brand, like, I wanna write books," I could pass it on to her. So that was
Mhm.
kind of why I even went with Rella because her nickname is Bella. So it's like later on,
Aw,
branding wise, it could be Rella and Bella if I wanted to expand.
that's so
So
sweet. I love
yeah.
that. That's really cool, actually.
So it's really I almost was gonna go into clothes, like mommy and me
You almost
matching
did close.
clothes.
Okay. Talk
Um,
about what a different, maybe like industry, like an author doing a clothes brand or doing more merchandise. I could see that
right.
as a strategy, it's just different.
It is. I do have
Mhm,
merch. It's mainly for SEO. It's not
mhm,
really for anything other than that. I do
okay.
buy my merch, obviously. I wear it. I try to be recognized by all of my purple.
I mean,
And then
that's the way to do it. You're very recognizable. You have this very, like, unique, like, I can tell that you do a children's brand just from your style.
yes, and I get
Mhm,
that a lot. People are always telling me like, "Oh, I see the hat and I know that it's you." So I'm just
mhm.
trying to get the hat everywhere, basically.
That's what I try to do with the hat. I'm like, all right, how do I stand out as like a male fantasy writer? It's like, I guess I could wear like fantasy clothes. Like on my casual streams, I'll wear more casual t-shirts that have
Mhm.
like the cool animations on it. But then I was like, okay, I'll just have this cool hat that hopefully people will recognize me for.
I like it. Does it have a feather on the side?
It does. It does. And one of the reasons it actually has a feather was because it was to honor my grandmother who passed
Mm.
away a couple years ago.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's specifically why. But a lot of people will recognize me because of the hat. They're like, "Oh, cool hat." I was like, "Okay, all right, let's just run with it."
I mean, I like that it ties into your logo as well.
Mhm. Awesome. So as we've established, let's see. So we talked about establishing a unique identity. So, and I know you touched on how you came up with with the Rella B brand. Can you dive in a little bit more detail of like what did that step-by-step process look like as you established the children's brand once you made that decision?
Right. It was a lot of research.
Okay.
So I knew I wanted to write children's books and I wanted to
Okay.
create children's kid lit content. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do a YouTube channel, but
Okay.
it's always easier to collaborate with other authors when you need more content, right? So I was like,
Absolutely.
okay, I'm going to collaborate with people. Let me reach out to authors and see if they'd be willing to let me read their story.
Mhm.
I wanted to have movement in my content. So then I was like, okay, how am I going to segment this out? I created a show outline and then I watched other shows like Reading Rainbow or there was
Mhm.
another really old show called The Romper Room. And I got some things from there. I don't know if
I've
you've
never
heard
heard
of
of that
that.
one. I remember reading Rainbow growing up. I think I remember hearing about that one.
Yeah,
But
it's
it was that like format where it's like a author or reader is basically a character and they're reading too.
right.
They're not right. It was
So
that format. Mhm.
yeah, so I did a lot of research. I was like, okay, this is how I want the format to be. And then I want it to be really good quality. Like I had to get the equipment, all those things. And then I did a podcast that's non-visual, but follows very similar outlines. And I wanted
Mhm.
everything to be really accessible. So like let's say a child can't necessarily read a printed book, they can listen to the audio stories and still connect. And I'm also learning so much from other authors. So that was kind of where my mind was is how can I collaborate? How can I connect with more than just people that are picking up my physical book? And then if someone does buy my book, it has all of my content links in the back of that book. So not only
Mm,
do they read the book one time, but then they probably go to my channel and they're like, oh, this is really cool. And I continuously stay connected to them through all of these
that
different
makes
platforms.
sense. I like that. And I'm curious just for our authors out here who are still building brands and still are maybe in the research process. If you could guess like a number, how many hours do you think you spent on researching? If you were to like take an average, like would you say like you probably spent a couple hundred, you spent 50? Like if you were to really think about like how much time did you actually invest in it?
A lot. I still
Mhm.
research like daily for,
And that's the truth, right? We never stop learning because it's
right.
it's always a process.
It is.
I think when I talk to writers, I think I always tell them like I've been researching YouTube for probably 10 years now. But because I tried it twice previously before this era, but I feel like and I got burnt out both times when I
Yeah.
was doing inspirational, but it really took me getting to this section of my life and really like I quit the day job last year. I went full time, full in on this writing venture. And I've learned so much and I didn't realize that it's been the past 20 years learning for what I'm doing now.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
that's how it was because I was writing way before this, and I knew I kinda wanted to do content too, so thousands of hours.
And I'm actually kind of curious, what's been the hardest part for you as on your writing journey?
It's the collaboration part of it.
Okay.
Um, and the reason I say that is because I really wanted to teach myself how to be an illustrator, but it would just take too long to get the quality that I wanted. So I still learn on the side, but I just had to hire illustrators. And sometimes it's really exhausting to try to get what
Mm,
you have in your brain into
mhm.
someone else's brain. So
Yeah, I could
that
only
is
imagine.
exhausting. Yeah,
And especially because children's genre is based around illustrations. It's what,
exactly.
like 70% illustration and then 30% storytelling?
Right. And it's not
Mhm,
just I mean, obviously I struggle with that with writing, but that's also
mhm,
with YouTube because I have to deal with my editors and the podcast as well. So it's a lot
mhm,
of collaboration and communication.
mhm. Yeah, I totally get that. I think the suggestion I always hear from bigger brands is that you're either going to do the skill yourself, but you have to invest time, or you're going to pay somebody else to do it, but then you're investing money, right? So it's
Right.
kinda that trade-off.
Yes.
I know we had a great comment in here. Darth Goracorn, welcome to the stream, by the way. I highly suggest Shining Time Station then as a reference source for ideas. It's an old kid show. Okay. So
Interesting. I'll have to write that down.
it it's I try to think of like those reading style shows when I was growing up. but I think Reading Rainbow is the only one that comes to mind. I ended up just reading the books myself.
Really?
Yeah, whenever I wanted to read, I was an avid reader for sure. So let's see. So once you've established the brand, right? And I would say that your brand is definitely established. You have your YouTube channel over at with the Rella B books brand on YouTube. You have your website, which is phenomenal. I absolutely love the animation and the welcoming to it. I think it makes it very clear on who you are and what you're about.
Thank you.
And I think that's awesome. So once you've established a brand, and let's say that like, okay, regardless of what level of followers or view count or whatever we're at, established is people can search us up and they know who we are, what we're about, and maybe some of the things we're working on.
Right.
So with that being established, what would you say has been the most successful strategy for connecting with your audience?
So as far as connecting with my personal audience, I have a lot of different touch points.
Okay.
So I have a lot of different ways to connect with parents, whether that's
Mhm.
providing resources like printable activities for their kids, a
Okay.
blog, when it comes to like making literacy fun for their kids, even freebies like on Tuesdays, you can get Ruby Tuesdays for free for your kids. There's so many different resources you can provide for your audience that doesn't necessarily have to be your book.
Okay.
So in any one of those touch points, I'm always connecting them somewhere else. So in every
Mm,
blog, it says, okay, cool, you read the blog, like, but also I did this read aloud, or but also I have this podcast. And then they go to the
mm,
podcast and the podcast tells them to go to the YouTube channel. So that is my strategy for getting
interesting.
people in the ecosystem. So
So
there's
so it's almost
always
like a
something.
circular experience. So you don't have a single piece of content, whether that's reading, podcast, video, whatever, without directing them somewhere else. So does it become sort of like a circular thing then? Like somebody who likes it, like, oh, check out the next thing. Oh, now check out the next thing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. Like, once they get into, like, the first touch point and go to the second, then
Mm-hmm.
they are more aware of what all I do, because I try to make
Okay.
sure that I'm touching all of them. It's kind of hard. I don't say like, I might just do one, like, "Hey, check out
Okay.
my books," and then wait for them to get the book and then check out something else, because I don't wanna be like, "I do books and a podcast and this and this and this." I don't wanna exhaust people, but I do
Mm-hmm.
always lead them to the next step.
I like that. I've heard somewhere that you have to make it as easy as possible in a world where people have a very short attention span.
Yes.
Awesome. And then what strategies can new writers take to connect with their audience or readership? Any strategies that you would recommend?
So, first, I would recommend making it as easy as possible for yourself, however you want to do it. And I'll give you an example for social media. I
Okay.
really like Threads personally.
Mhm.
I like
You and me
I've
both.
met you on
Yeah,
Threads.
Threads has a really cool writing community, by the way. If you're here on YouTube or you're here on one of these platforms, welcome. And Threads has a very great writing community, by the way. So,
They do. It's
FYI.
so great.
Mhm,
So I like to write threads, and sometimes
mhm,
they're story threads. And after I write these threads, I'll either repurpose it into a video or
mhm,
I'll repurpose it into a blog, like even if it's a story and I'll have a call to
mhm,
action. But if I do the video, I'll use a software to be able to get that video everywhere. So I don't try to make more work for myself. If I create content, I repurpose that content. Like I would say, the easiest way to leverage your audience and connect with them is to be as many places as you can, as
mhm.
easily as you can. Um,
Yes, have you read or heard Gary Vaynerchuk?
yes.
The Gary Vaynerchuk model, be everywhere all at once.
Yes.
Absolutely agree with that. Have you had any success with any of the social media platforms? So I know you referenced Threads. What would you say has been one of your successful strategies that has worked with it? Is it just repurposing or is it doing specific types of posts?
So Threads is a newer platform for me. I actually just joined about 4 weeks ago, and I'm
Wow,
still
and you've
tinkering
already
around.
crossed 1,000 on there too, haven't you?
Yes, I am very steadily gaining lots of followers. People like support, so I do a lot of
Mhm.
supportive posts like, "Hey, let's cross promote each other's podcast," or "You review my
Okay.
podcast, I'll review yours." People like things like that. I offer tips when it comes to, hey, these are podcasts that you could get on to promote your children's book. These are podcasts for writers, and obviously writers like
Mm,
that. And
interesting. So you're sharing resources. You're basically
yes,
sharing, and there's a huge podcast interest on there as well. Right?
yes.
Huge interest for podcasting.
And stay-at-home moms as well. So I connect with lots of
Ooh.
them on
Mhm.
their post. I will search for
Okay.
my keywords, and then I
Mhm.
will like go personally to their page and write down like whatever it is that they're talking about. They might be talking about potty training or something. I'm like, hey, I have a
Mhm.
potty training song on my YouTube. Or, I go and I find my audience and I engage with them directly. It's very easy on
Mhm.
Threads.
Ooh, okay, that's really cool. Yeah, I know I've taken a similar approach, I would say with Facebook, where I end up doing a lot of posts. Sometimes I turn them into blogs, and then sometimes I'll do a post, but then I'll go find people and go in the comments to provide value
Hmm.
and go find like, okay, where can I find on the platform or in groups can I connect with other writers or people who care about the same thing?
Right. That's the easiest.
Mhm,
Go where your audience is.
mhm. Is Threads the main one that you've had success with? Are there any other social media platforms for writers that you'd recommend?
I think that Threads is really good for
Mhm,
finding your audience and also finding people to collaborate honestly.
mhm,
Instagram is more self-serving, I feel like, than Threads
mhm.
is, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um,
I haven't had too much traction on Instagram. I'm still on Instagram and doing the things, but
mhm.
I know the algorithm is a little more difficult right now because it's overly saturated.
Right, and
Mhm,
that's why I say just be everywhere because I will post something to Instagram and it'll flop. But
mhm,
because I repurpose it to YouTube Shorts, it'll be amazing there, or to TikTok, it'll be amazing there. So I would say my two biggest audiences right now where I connect with people are Instagram and also Threads. Instagram is easier for me to monetize because I'm in people's DMs. They're coming to me like, oh, can you do this? Or can we do that?
mhm.
Can I purchase a spot on your podcast, or can you
Mm,
do an unboxing for me? And so I kind of became like an influencer, which I was like, that was not part of the plan, but
interesting.
I'm not going to turn down the extra money. That's fine.
So what would you say has been some of your most successful, I guess, like strategies with the different things you're trying on your branding?
So I started off doing a lot of bloopers, and I think
Okay.
people thought it was
You
because
said bloopers?
yes,
Interesting. So
I,
you're trying to go with the comedy aspect.
it wasn't really that. It was that because I record so much content and lots of
Mhm,
it I have to just cut out, I'm like, I might as
mhm.
well repurpose this in some way. It was the easiest.
Agree.
It didn't
Mhm,
cost me anything extra to
mhm,
repurpose my bloopers. And so I think in the beginning that did kind of push me into, oh, she's funny, but I'm not funny. And like that's not really what I want to be known for. And I'm really not that funny. Like I just have to do things over and over again. So now I'm branching out of being funny and being more
mhm,
resourceful. So
mm,
um, it's easier for people to come to you when you're resourceful and you're showing them everything that you're doing. So it is
mhm,
hard to do that. Um, but another thing is like batching what you're doing.
mhm.
So because I already had those videos, it was just easy to go ahead and do the bloopers. Now I take 30 minutes in front of a camera and I literally just take like my camera with me and I'll be sitting on the bed, record content, do
Mhm.
laundry, record content, and talk to the
Yeah.
camera for 30 minutes, cut it up, and that's my content for the month. And I just talk about
Yeah.
different things that comes to writing. So that'll be my next wave of content.
Mhm. That's awesome. So do you predominantly do so it sounds like you do videos. I know you do videos on your channel, and it sounds like
Right.
you do vertical, like I think vertical content, I think that's the way to call them, across platforms, but like TikToks, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. And you mentioned doing blog posts as well. Are there
Yes.
any other types of content that you focus on?
No, it's mainly just the kids content,
Okay.
lots of kids content, my newsletters and blogs, and then the videos.
Okay. Awesome.
Mhm.
Have you had a lot of success with your newsletter?
Um, so I wouldn't say I've had a lot of success with my newsletter. No, I also don't nurture them as much as I maybe should be.
Mhm.
But I also don't wanna bother them because I do not like getting emails. Like, I cannot stand getting emails in my own inbox. So unless I have something really valuable, I just don't really share it. So I'm at about 1,700, I think, right now,
Mhm.
and I only share things when they're really important.
Which I think is absolutely incredible, right? So then it sounds like your newsletter list, they know that when they get an email from you, that it's gonna be valuable, which then probably improves your open and your click-through rate.
Yes, that's the goal. Right now, I think
Mhm.
that lots of my stuff is honestly ending up in spam because it's very
Mm,
image heavy, and when I
mhm,
test it, it's ended up in my own spam inbox. So I'm still trying to
mm.
figure out the newsletter things as well. I think I might do a Substack to try to get around that.
Yeah, I've done some research with my own newsletter, and I think part of it is a little of the consistency aspect, and if
Mm,
you're doing it more frequently, it's basically how likely are people to open it and differentiate it as an email and not a spam thing. But
oh,
it's quite a learning process for sure.
okay, cool. That's good to know.
Mhm. So with how have you leveraged your strengths with your author brand? What would you say are like the things that have really stood out for you personally? And then how have you like made them part of who you are now?
Right. So I would say my strengths inside of my brand are that one, I'm easily recognizable. Like
Mhm.
when people have seen me once, they'll probably remember, like, oh, I've seen that girl.
Okay.
So I think that that's really good. And I think another strength that I have is that I am really helpful and not just in like Instagram things, but if people are
Mhm.
in my inbox, I try to respond to everybody, even if it's something that I don't necessarily think would be best for me.
Mhm.
And I feel like being responsive has gained a lot of like loyal people that are willing to support me in things like my Backerkit campaign. Like there's people that are like, "Oh yeah, I'll check it out, like send me the link." And then it makes me excited because I'm like, this is a friend I made online.
Aw. So it kinda sounds like you've taken some things that you've done well outside your brand, and you brought them into the brand itself.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, I know I've always thought about what are things that I do well, and I think I've always been good with empathizing with people and also being very highly energetic is a thing. Working in the caffeine industry, people always said that, they're like, "Okay, so you're just hooked on caffeine." I'm like, "No, it's inherent, but the caffeine helps."
See, you are funny.
On occasion. Yeah, and then I really think about what our strengths are as both writers and both then content creators, because these are really two different hats we're wearing. And I ask myself, how do I leverage my unique strength to make it something that people can connect with? And I think something that I'm taking away with you is really the resource aspect of sharing different and unique types of resources with the audience.
Yes, and that
Mhm,
goes into my children's books as well. Like, If Shapes
mhm,
Could Eat is supposed to be able to be a resource to maybe help a child interact with food in a non-threatening way if they are not into food.
mhm,
I have a little cousin that just really doesn't like to eat, but she might
mhm,
play with food or have like a sensory experience with just looking at it
mhm,
instead of like necessarily wanting to eat it. So that's what I want my books to be for too, to help children combat different things or just experience things through a book. Specifically, If Shapes Could Eat also has like cookie mixes that are based
mhm.
off of the characters in the book. So
Ooh,
it's just like a
that's
fun,
exciting.
yeah, I want it to go beyond the book. Like you don't just read the book once, you can continuously make these cookies or anything like that, something that will stick with the children.
That is excellent. So then I think this would be the perfect time. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to pull up the Kickstarter, the backer kit on the screen so we can share with the audience
Okay.
your brand new book that's actually about to launch, it looks like. So
Yes, I
I'm gonna
know.
pull that up. Give me just a second. And this is also a great transition for a quick ad. So if you're enjoying the stream, follow and subscribe. I'm here every day with the Right Now community doing live writing sprints. We got a writers group. We do author interviews. We do critique shows, blurb things, everything that you could need to help you publish that first book. So tap that follow, tap that subscribe button, and you'll be alerted when we go live. And if you're really enjoying the interview so far and you want to follow Rella B, go follow her on her YouTube channel. It's linked down below in the YouTube description over at Rella B Books. If you are a parent and you have young kids, is like the perfect content as a children's channel. So what we're going to be hopping into next, we're going to review and look at Rella's brand new book that's coming out, If Shapes Could Eat. I'm pulling it up onto the screen now. And then we're going to hop into what are some tips and strategies to grow your audience as an author. And then the one thing we all care about, how do you make money as an author brand? So we'll be hopping into those shortly. Perfect. And now let me pull up. Excellent. If Shapes Could Eat. All right, Rella. So I got you back up on the screen here. And let's see, let me adjust this, pull that off the screen. Beautiful. So I have your Backerkit project here. I totally said Kickstarter. I'm so used to everyone doing a Kickstarter or GoFundMe.
Right. It's very similar. Backerkit is actually having an amazing collaboration event called Booktopia, where they're having all types of author, horror, sci-fi, children's books, self-help, bilingual books. We're all launching on the same day, which is the 5th of September. And then we're all ending on September 26th. But during that time, if you back multiple campaigns, you get extra freebies and like bookmarks. They have audiobooks, special stories. Personally, for myself and my partner, we are doing a mini memory game. But if you back 4 children's books, then you'll get a full deck of a memory game, like a little card game. So, and they're all based off of our books. It's very fun. Cool. Yeah.
And then I did want to answer this. Party.
Yes. I did want to answer this question, if that's okay, for what I did first as far as creating my brand. And I
absolutely. So let's pull it up. So Emma was asking, what did you do first? Did you have the books? Let's see, I'll pull us back up real quick. So did you have the books, then create your brand, or did you have the brand first, then create your books? Now it seems writers almost need the brand first for fiction writers.
Right. So I would say that you should create the brand first. Did I do that? No, I did write the books first. But I think it's really powerful if you bring your followers on the journey with you. Like, oh, you know, I'm having writer's block right now, but this is my character. They're, you know, a triangle that loves to fly or something like that. And you can get feedback as you're writing. And so your book doesn't even have to be done for you to start building your brand and that recognition. That'll also help you when you launch. So I think that's really important.
Awesome. Yeah, I would completely, I would agree that you need to start your brand early. For me, I think it's balance and understanding what your goals are. Because I think a lot of writers start out on writing this book or writing their books. They want to write a story and they want to share it with the world. But they don't really, they don't always understand all the different facets that go into, once the book's done, marketing, like publishing, marketing, branding, and that's such a key component. If you put out a book on Amazon, right, I'm going to assume we're self-publishing, and somebody likes your book, where do they go to? What do they do next? They'll go check out your Facebook profile, and if you haven't been on Facebook for a year, or they'll go check out your TikTok or Instagram or whatever platform that you're on. So I think if you don't have a brand and you do want to be a published author, then that makes it kind of hard for people to go connect with you if they like what you're coming up with.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Awesome. So I think that was a really great question, Emma. Thanks for that. So let's see. So we had this Backerkit, which is super awesome. And I know you have, it looks like your launch party in what's that, 2 weeks. Ooh, are you going to be live streaming that?
Yes, I'm so excited about it. It's going to be fun. I have a ton of things to unbox and show people. And my characters are going to make an appearance. I'm very excited.
Ooh, so it looks like we got some merchandise over here. That sounds really, really cool, by the way. I've really thought through, like, okay, should I create plushies of some of my characters, even though I'm doing a fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, you could just make one for you.
You're right. I'm working on a dark fantasy novel called The Last Scarecrow. And I know it's basically a world full of animals and dark stuff. But a lot of my audience has been like, all right, we'll just create a scarecrow plushie. I
I
was like,
love
all right,
it,
let's do it.
especially with
Uh,
Halloween around the corner.
yeah, right. You know what's interesting is I don't even think about the Halloween aspect as a content creator and author brand. I think about NaNoWriMo's around the corner.
Okay.
Oh man. But yeah, so this is super cool. And for anybody who wants to go follow Rella or support her, let me throw the link down in the comments to your Backerkit. And I imagine it works very similar to like Kickstarter where you can have like
Yes.
supporters on there.
Right. So right now, if you wanted to follow it and get updates on the launch and everything like that, all you have to
Mhm.
do is put your email in right there. And then you can sign up at a later date. But just to get updates, you can just put your email in.
Okay,
And
perfect.
then I don't
Excellent.
email like crazy. I don't because I don't like it. So, treat
I
people how
remember you
you want
said
to be
earlier, you,
treated.
you only give emails when you feel like you have something important to share,
Yes.
which is absolutely incredible. So definitely follow that link. I just dropped it down in the comments. It's also down in the YouTube description as well. So, but that must be so exciting. So you're a launch day for any author is such an exciting process. How and I know that you created this book because you wanted to help parents and help kids have like healthy eating habits. Are what is the next book that you're wanting to write in this series?
Oh, wow. So right now I'm actually working on like 7 different covers of stories.
Ooh,
Um,
okay.
yes, just because I feel like if I have the cover, it'll just kind of help me finish writing the story, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'll have something to kind of show people to see which one they're more excited about.
Okay, that makes
But
sense.
for If Shapes Could Eat, I had another
Mm-hmm.
book that was called If Shapes Could Talk, and that was basically about, um, not assuming that you know what is going on in somebody else's life and being grateful for your family because you
Mm-hmm.
don't the grass is not always greener on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And in that story, one of the main characters actually is adopted. So one of my next books
Interesting.
will
Okay.
be about her adoption like story and
Mm-hmm.
her. So I'm really excited about it. I just want it to be done very well because,
Mm-hmm.
in some situations it can be, a sensitive topic. So I am
Mm-hmm.
trying to take a lot of time to do that book.
So then it is the goal with your books, you're thinking more from like, okay, what's the lesson that could connect with this type of maybe child or parent, depending on the dynamic?
Yes, my books are very like multi-layered. I have a simple book and that's about resources. So right now it's
Mhm,
Mama, I Got a Dollar, and it's just
mhm,
talking about all the different things you can do with a dollar. Kids don't deal with cash as much anymore. And like
mm.
my daughter is 4 and she definitely just thinks that we can go anywhere and get anything. She's like, "Tell daddy to go get us some more money. You just spent your last $10 out of your purse or whatever," if
From
she
the
sees
money
the
tree,
cash.
right?
Right, exactly. So, that was my motivation, is to get
Mhm,
kids thinking about what do you do with a dollar? There's gonna be
mhm,
another one about what do you do with the seed, and it'll be about
mm,
gardening. And so they'll all have different lessons. I do plan on doing a silly series
mhm.
that involves movement. And I don't want to
Ooh,
give too
okay.
much away about that one because I'm really excited about it and I'm getting like character sheets done right now.
Mhm.
I don't want somebody to do my idea before I do it.
So thank you for sharing that. I think what I always love to talk about with other authors is a little bit of the writing process. And I can tell, even though like with your children's brand, it still seems to start with either an idea, a lesson, a philosophy, something that you want a young reader to learn. And even for myself, I'm a fantasy writer and a lot of authors in our community, where we still have to start our ideas with the core philosophy. Even if we think of like some of our favorite books and we think of, I mean, Rilla, what types of books do you read personally? Do you read fiction, nonfiction?
Nonfiction. And I
Nonfiction.
normally read audiobooks.
Yep. Same here. Absolutely. So even with nonfiction, right? Nonfiction is much more about I need to learn a skill. And maybe it's a motivational type thing, maybe it's a specific logistical thing, but that's still the same thing with the nonfiction genre. But it still starts with the philosophy of this author's philosophy. I'm going to help you learn the thing.
Right.
Whereas with fiction, it's still philosophy, but it's more I'm teaching you a life philosophy that's layered under character journey and a world full of characters.
True.
Absolutely. When one of my favorite nonfiction books, which I tell the writing community all the time, is Atomic Habits. I'm like, for any author anybody who's even not an author who struggles, like, read Atomic Habits. You will thank me.
That should honestly be required in high school. Like,
It really should, like, because like we especially with social media, we struggle so much in this day and age with being consistent and having consistency with successful things, and it all starts with forming a simple habit.
yes.
So I'm curious with your community. So it sounds like you've established a number of different things that you're doing between like your newsletter, your YouTube brand, the books, and all of these things in between. Are there any specific strategies that have worked for you in growing your community and establishing yourself as an author?
I think growing in my community, I kind of have different communities, if that makes sense. So
Okay.
I have parents and I have authors, because right now I can't really connect with children outside of like school visits or
Hmm.
like bookstores or signings. So
Okay.
because of that, I feel like getting UGC done
Hmm.
for the different aspects of my brand was really
Hmm.
helpful when it comes to connecting with parents,
Hmm.
because they can see other kids interacting with it and what my content looks like,
Hmm.
what it looks like for their child to potentially connect with my content, and that it's like safe. It's somewhere that their kids can be okay. Um,
Hmm.
and establishing like that connection with authors would just be collaboration, like collaboration reels, um, getting feedback, giving feedback. That is so important. Like, hey,
Hmm.
I don't like the way this is written. Do you mind taking a look at it? Or what do you think of this cover? There's so many great writing groups. And if you're not already in a community of people that you trust, I would get into a writing community, whether it's like Ally or even just a Facebook group. It's
Okay.
so valuable.
I completely agree with that. I would say of the 230 days I've been doing these live streams now, the Right Now community that I've started has helped me out so many days where I just didn't feel like writing or didn't feel like doing anything, and they really like inspired me. So you brought up a couple good points, and this is a perfect segue into the monetization aspect of it. So, like a lot of new unpublished writers, a lot of authors who are working on their first or their early books are trying to figure out, how do I make money? Obviously, beyond selling the book, what are different things that I can do to make money? Because a lot of them are doing it as a passion or as a side project and might not have the resources to invest. So what monetization strategies would you recommend for new writers?
So one, the first thing I would say is you should really be thinking about this, like, even before the brand, is how you're
Okay.
going to monetize it. And it's easy for me to say that now because hindsight is 2020.
Mhm.
Um, but there's so many different ways that authors sell their books, and
Mhm.
it seems like people kind of find their flow and go with it. So I know some people monetize their book while they're writing it using a software called Ream.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep.
so
I've heard of Rim before. Mhm.
Right. So, I mean, that's really easy to start monetizing it and building your audience at the same time and getting feedback. That's an incredible way to use that platform. I don't use it
Mhm.
because I have children's books. The whole book would be written and it would just be out there. Um, but another way that you can monetize is while you're writing, you could reach out to people that want to be featured if you're doing nonfiction and if they're going
Mhm.
to have like some sort of portion in your book. If you're doing something on like health and wellness and you want to plug them in and then
Mm.
maybe give them a page in the back of the book.
Interesting.
Um,
So it's almost like a collaboration element, but then framing it of like, hey, you can have a spot, or maybe it's like an advertising. Seems like
it
kind of a
is like
cross
an
between
advertising.
myself.
It's a
Yeah.
feature. Yeah. So you
Oh,
could do
that's
that.
interesting. I wouldn't have thought about that. That's clever.
Yeah. You could do pre orders for your book instead
Mhm.
of, doing a massive book ordering before you know if you're going to sell them. You could set up a
Yeah.
pre-sale or a pre-order or do a Backerkit or a Kickstarter. There's so
Mhm.
many different ways for you to monetize being an author
Mhm.
besides Amazon.
Mhm.
So it's hard to do all of them.
Mhm.
It's a lot to do all of them, and I'm saying that
Mhm.
from experience. So I would pick one and go all in until you know, like, "Okay, I got this down, now let me try this." Because I did
Yeah, that
not
makes
think this
sense.
Backer Kit campaign was going to be as extensive as it is, but I am stressing out.
So what would you say have been some of your key learnings from doing crowdfunding? Because I know that's something a lot of authors think about doing. I know it's something I'm considering doing. I've gone back and forth a number of times, like, all right, crowdfunding, is it worth the time investment? And then how much things do I need to actually invest to be successful with it?
Right, so I will say the reason that I'm doing crowdfunding is because I do wanna have, like, an all-encompassing knowledge of things that you can do when it comes to publishing.
Okay.
And so my key takeaways are that the people that are gonna support you are people that really like you as
Mhm.
a person. So whether that's your aunt, your grandma, or your neighbor, it's gonna be
Mhm.
people that are close to you because I've run ads to try to get lead magnets out to people to get them to give me emails. And that's not as easy as just telling people that are close to me, like, hey, this is something that I'm doing and I'm passionate about it. Would you mind supporting me? Reaching out to businesses and experts in the field to offer value is also great when it comes to doing like a backer kit campaign
Mhm.
because like I've reached out to pediatric dietitians and like
Mm.
mommy influencers, and when they're willing to share it with their audience, that's awesome. But they may have an audience of 1,000 people. They still don't know me or anything
Mhm.
about me. The landing page doesn't really tell you that much either. So it's a really low conversion rate, even when I'm working with people
Interesting.
that have
Okay.
larger audiences.
What would you say has been the highest conversion rate for you of all the different monetization things you've tried?
Um, that's hard. I would probably say just selling in person because
Okay.
I think
And is it from just, like, selling the book or selling, like, products as part or
oh,
selling
like
services?
monetary wise, like
Yeah.
where I get the most money. Oh no, it's from like brands and collaborations
From
because
yeah,
it's,
okay.
you know, a short video gets me way more than writing a book.
So it sounds like the UGC strategy has worked out well for you.
Yes.
Mhm. And for those who don't know, UGC, user generated content, is a very popular thing for content creators to do with bigger brands or brands that are around the same that are in the same industry because they could do it themselves, but they're paying a content creator to do it for them because they're bringing the expertise, skill, or branding with them. Did you end up reaching out to any brands or did some of them reach out to you? Anything that you could share with our audience?
Right. So most of the brands have reached out to me because, like I said, that wasn't something that I wanted to do
Mhm.
initially. But I think because I do have affiliate links to different
Mhm.
things that are in my content,
Mhm.
maybe that just gave them the idea that they could reach out and ask me to promote things for them that are like
Mm.
kidlit related.
Mhm.
So I've loved that. And I'm like, okay, maybe this will be something that I do because a 30-second video just will net a lot more than selling 30 books on Amazon, you
Mhm.
know, when you have such a small margin to work
Mhm.
within.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for sharing that. I know for me, I've predominantly gone through my writing services as a writing coach and an editor, but I'm always asking myself, what are the other like monetization strategies to pursue? Because I know there's so many. So there's so many different options. So I know UGC is definitely a good strategy, and it sounds like you're having some success with the backer kit, which is super cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think this is probably a good time to open up some Q&A to our audience. So, if you're here in the live stream right now, or maybe if you're watching on the replay, what are some questions that you have for us? What are some questions that you have for Rella B about the author process, about building up a brand, or anything related to our conversation today. So, Rella, I have a great question from one of our audience members. So, Darth was saying, so would you say getting too comfortable in your writing can be detrimental in the long game as a writer?
So I don't know if I'm interpreting this question
Mhm,
properly. I'm not sure if it means getting too comfortable in the way that you only want to write what you want to write, even if it's not selling. Because if
mhm,
you've written something that didn't sell the first time, and then you maybe got 3 or 4 books in, and people are still not going through your backlog of books, then I would probably get feedback and figure out what it is that you're doing or what it is that you could change. Um,
mhm.
I'm not sure if that answers the question or if it's just you're so comfortable with your writing that you don't try to build your audience. Um,
That's interesting, but it's almost like 2 different almost could potentially be 2 different questions, but I think
right.
both of those are great, both questions to think through.
Yeah. I think getting too comfortable with anything, honestly, could be very
Mhm,
detrimental. You should always be willing to pivot if you need to.
mhm.
If what you're doing is working for you, then I would definitely say keep doing it. But if it's to the point where you're just doing something and it's not gaining you results, then try something different.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with that. I think I moved away from calling myself an expert like a year or 2 ago and just considering myself an enthusiast because I feel like I'm always learning, right? I don't feel
Mhm.
like I'm ever gonna stop learning, and I think as we're writing and we're doing this whole building up an author brand process, I feel like we're gonna make mistakes. There's things we're gonna fail at, things we'll do well at, but it's all about continuing to know how do you keep evolving.
Yes, it
Absolutely.
is.
Let's see. And then WTC asked a great question here. Did you start off writing for you or writing for the market? This is a great question.
Right. So I started off writing completely for myself. You
Mhm.
can see the Issa's Imagination in the back. That's a book that I haven't actually published, but it was completely for my daughter. Like it's
Ooh, let's see. I think
for
I'll
her.
drop that from the screen for I just wanted to show that picture real quick because that was a really good one.
Oh, thank
But as
you.
you were saying,
Yeah, so I mean, I did start off writing for myself, and honestly, I started writing. I've always loved writing, but I was a
mhm.
flight attendant for a very long time, and I had a lot of time that I didn't have anything to do.
Ooh, from
So I
air
would write.
travels, traveling around the world, a flight attendant?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
goodness. I don't think I could ever be it. I hate I like always feel like I'm gonna crash on a plane.
I do too, actually. Like, even though I do too. And I know like what happens. So I'm just like,
Mhm.
"Whew." Like every time we take off and land, I'm like, okay.
So that's awesome. So it sounds like you had this passion for writing, and that was at the start of it. And then
Yes.
through this journey, you've kind of been like, okay, this is how I have to make it work for the market.
Right.
Hmm.
I did have to pivot. And I do understand that even with my covers, actually, the If Shapes Could Eat cover is not the final cover because I got feedback that there wasn't enough character connection, there wasn't enough color contrast, different things. And I was like, okay, cool. You know what? I'm going to redo all of my covers. And so that's the process that I'm in now because I just learned so much through the like whole journey that I've gone on. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this better. So let's go ahead and fix this. That's not always the answer. If you have a book that's not doing well already and you change the cover, it could be the answer, but it's not always the answer.
Yeah, and I think this is the hard part, right? If we could have the most phenomenal, amazing story in the world, but if the cover doesn't capture their interest in comparison to the 1,000 other covers out there, the cover, the blurb, and then the hook. If those don't capture the interest, they don't read it. So I
Right.
think the cover is so important. And Rella, like I know we can resonate here on the YouTube journey, right? Thumbnail, title, topic, title, thumbnail. It's that same idea, right? We have to pull people in with a cover that works. And I think the only way we know if a cover works, same as like an image, is based off the market, based off
Yes.
readers, based off the audience. That's like, we can try out different things and we can love it. I mean, I love a lot of stuff I put out, but that doesn't mean that other people are going to connect with it and resonate.
Exactly.
Sometimes it will, but it's not always the case from what I've learned.
Yes, definitely. It's been really interesting because I'll put something out there and be like, this is amazing. Like, I love everything about it. And the stats do not say that. So
It's always such a trial and error process. And this is a personal question. So how do you figure out what book covers or what covers work for your brand? It sounds like you're kind of going through a process of updating them. What does that look like for you?
So I've that community that I was talking about when it comes
Mhm.
to working with other authors, I researched different books that I really liked the cover of. And
Mhm.
then I let authors know, like, hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking. Like, do you think that this would be okay? And they're like, okay, yeah, maybe try this or maybe try that, like a sounding board. And then I go to the illustrator and I have them do a rough sketch. And then I come back to the group and I'm like, okay, these are the rough sketches. Like, what do you think? And so I'm just like getting feedback for every single part of the
Mhm.
process with people that I value their opinion.
Yeah, that's really good. Once again, goes back to that community aspect, which I
Right.
absolutely love. And then WTC asked another great question. Do your books focus on providing a lesson for the children? Do you also add in lessons for the parents? Ooh, this is a good one.
Yes. So this is a really good question. And I think I said earlier that my books are really layered when it comes to the lessons that could be taught. Um, so in my shapes books and the whole series, there's shapes and colors on every page. So if you're reading to a
Mhm.
2-year-old, you may be reading them the story. They may not really get it, but they're looking at the shapes. You see, what color is this? What shape is this? And you can just have a
Mhm.
nice review. When the child gets a little bit older, the story, like I said, in If Shapes Could Eat, is about like moderation and trying new foods. And it's okay if you don't like everything. So it's a really good lesson and like, oh, okay, like I'm not going to get in trouble if I don't like this food, but maybe I can try it and see if I like it. And if I don't like it today, maybe I can try again in another year. Um, and then for the parents, I would say that I don't necessarily have lessons for the parent, but I provide the books as a tool for them to use for lessons for their child. So all of
Mhm.
my books come with lesson plans. They come with coloring books. They also have a companion workbook that comes with them. So I do try to provide a lot of resources.
Mhm.
And
You mentioned
I
back to
also
that resources, which is phenomenal.
yes. So yeah, that's the answer. It's multi-layered.
That's really awesome. And I can only imagine that for the children's genre, that really, I mean, clearly the kid's probably not going to be the one to buy it, make the purchasing decision, choose it. It's probably, I imagine it's what, 70% the parents of like, oh, that's a cute book. Oh, this is a lesson I want them to learn. Or I'm dealing
Right.
with potty training now, or I'm dealing with money, or I'm dealing with whatever. So
Yeah.
it seems like you really have to target the parent, but then you're also including the child along in the journey. Is that about accurate for the children's genre?
It's 100% accurate, and
Mhm,
it's
okay.
hard.
Yeah, I could only imagine. It's like you're creating something, but it's really you're creating it for children, but really it's for parents. They're kind of using
Yeah.
that psychology aspect. Awesome. WTC, thank you for asking that. An absolutely great question. So, I think we've had some really, really good questions. We've had a really, really great chat today just about building an author's brand. And as we get to this part of the podcast, I always, 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 Rowan, I have to ask all my guests this one question. If tomorrow was your last chapter in the book of life, you got hit by a car, and you could leave behind a quote or a philosophy of your own to the writers, to your community, to the authors of the world, what would it be?
I mean, I think it was touched on a little bit earlier, but it would really be to never stop reading. And this isn't just for writers, it's for everybody because reading is the best way to transform your life. You learn so much through reading, and it's so powerful. So never stop reading.
I absolutely love that. I completely agree with that. How can we be writers if we are not well read? We have to learn descriptions, adjectives, philosophies, stories, ideas, and all the things to go into being a successful writer. Rella, thank you for joining me today. It's been an absolutely great conversation. I feel like I actually learned a couple different strategies with building up an author brand. And now I feel like even more inspired that I was like, okay, maybe I need to create some more resources for my author.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to go do some crowdfunding.
Everybody loves resources.
Mhm. Awesome. So thank you for joining me today, Rella. It's been an absolutely great conversation. And for anybody who wants to know more about you, where can they find you?
So if you type in Rella B books, and if there's anybody just listening, that's RellaBBooks.
Mhm.
You can find it on Google. You can go any platform of social media and find me at Rella B Books. They're all the same handle.
Awesome. And then I've also dropped both Rella B books and the Backerkit links down in the comments if you're here in the live stream or the replay, and also down in the YouTube video description. So go check them out. Rella's book comes out in 10 days. So your launch party is going to be in about 2 weeks. Remind me when launch day has arrived, and we'll do a shout out for you. Because I hope that you sell lots of books and you help lots of children out there have healthier habits with eating, because that is so
Thank you.
important, especially in the US society where obesity is a very predominant issue for a lot of Americans. So I think that's really incredible.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining me today, Rella. I'm going to close out the stream, but you're awesome. I appreciate your time.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Mhm. All right. Beautiful. So thank you for joining us as part of the conversation. This was a great topic about just talking about author brands and specifically learning about Rella's experience as building up her own personified character with Rella B books. Thank you for being involved. Thank you for joining the conversation. It has been very insightful. So, if you're looking for something to watch next, down in the YouTube description is an link to one of our previous episodes, episode 13 of the Create Right Now podcast, turning writing brands into earning enterprises. So this was one of our other guests, the releasing your inner dragon. So if you want to know more, if you want to stay on the writing, the author brand ship, and you missed it on this episode, go check it out, because there's some more key insights and some more learnings in there in making money as an author. So definitely worth checking out. Good episode. And I'll be back tomorrow for our casual Monday stream, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. I am almost done. I probably got about one more week of prepping my book, The Last Scarecrow, to get ready for the second draft. We've got the character development, we got to figure out the magic, and we got some more stuff to do. So tomorrow, more character development, and I'll be here. Come join me. And don't forget, like this stream on your way out. Let me know that you got value out of it. Help us show the algorithms that writing streams are cool. All right, my friends. And that brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative.